Hi, this is Hank Garner, the host of the Author Stories podcast. I hope you've been enjoying the show. I hope you like the interviews that I've been bringing to you. The month of December, I'm bringing some special episodes that branching out into a little different area, and this is one of those. If you've enjoyed Author Stories so far and you would like to help other people to find the show, please go to iTunes and rate it for me. That will help other people that may not know about the show to find it. Thank you to Scrivener for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Scrivener is a product that I personally use and I really believe in. Scrivener is a fantastic piece of software, and if you go to getscrivener.com and use the coupon code HANK, H-A-N-K, you can get 20% off the already low price. It's a no-brainer. Make sure you go to my website, hankgarner.com, where you can find all episodes that we've done so far. And also follow me on my Third Scribe blog at hankgarner.thirdscribe.com. You can sign up there for my newsletter to stay abreast of all the news coming up with new shows, new interviews we've got coming up, giveaways. There's going to be all sorts of things for you to get involved with. Also, new book releases. I have a new book coming out very soon called Mulligan. And I think you'll enjoy it, but I'll be sending out some information about that. Also, on Monday, December the 8th, that'll be a few days after this episode goes out, I'm giving away a signed copy of my first book, Bloom, and all you have to do is sign up for my newsletter, and I'll be picking one entry from there to get a personalized signed copy of Bloom. Thanks for listening to the show. I really appreciate it, and I hope that if you have any feedback on the show that you would drop me a line at authorhankgarner@outlook.com. Now here's our show. Well, thanks for joining me this week for the Author Stories podcast, where I bring you the story behind the stories and the storytellers. My guest this week is Rob McClellan. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Well, thanks, Hank. I'm proud to be here.
Well, thank you. Now, you are a little bit different type guest than we've had before. But you have a fascinating story and a niche in the writing community that I think is pretty awesome. So why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I am the proprietor of a service called Third Scribe, which is a social platform for authors, readers, and publishers. And our goal is to facilitate, and make it much easier for everyone in the writing world to communicate and stay together. And so we built a platform to provide a lot of services to authors and to provide a very good environment for readers to talk to authors. And that's we've been doing that about a little more than 6 months now, and we're growing slowly but surely. The authors really like it, and those that use it really enjoy it, and we're hoping to do a lot more with it.
Well, I'm a recent Third Scribe convert, and am loving it so far. And now that Thanksgiving is behind us, I hope to dig more into it and really get my Third Scribe presence up. But you have a really unique take on the whole author platform, and we'll get into that in a minute. But are you a writer?
I'm one of those people that can write and would probably love to be a writer, but I can never really seem to finish it. I used to do some writing in the past. Yeah, I guess I am, but for the most part, unpublished. I keep having a dream that I'll write something at some point in time, but I've found that I'm probably more passionate about building things and stuff than I am writing them. So one day.
Yeah. What is your professional background?
I am a naval officer. Well, I was. I just retired. So my background is as an engineer, and I was a Navy diver for nearly 20 years, and I just retired after 20 years of service. And I got into all this several years ago when the Kindle first came out. And at the time, I was very interested in comic books and, graphic arts, and I had grown up with that as a kid. And I thought, with all this digital publishing, anyone can publish anything. You don't need a publisher deal anymore. You can just go for it.
Right.
And so some friends of mine and I put some comics together. And as we were putting that out, the iPhone was out and new platforms were coming on board. And so we actually made one of the first comic book apps that were out there. And in promoting that and in looking at that, we said, well, we need a website. Oh, okay, well, let's shell out some money for that. And, we were like a lot of other people back in 2009. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. And so we paid a pretty fair amount for a website. It was a great website. It did great. But in the process of all of that, I kind of learned that, one, websites, I kind of dig it. And I glommed onto that. And two, a lot of people need that type of help. So over the years, it's kind of evolved from helping friends to turning into a bit more of a business. And then ultimately we said, well, what do we really need? What do authors really need? What would I really want? What are the other services providing, Goodreads and such providing that maybe we could do differently or do better? And Third Scribe kind of came out of all that.
Wow. So, the idea was to look at how readers and writers are connecting, and try to do that better.
I think.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed about Goodreads, and is the same thing that I noticed about the revamp of MySpace actually, was that a lot of content was on there. Say Goodreads is full of books, obviously, hundreds of millions of books, and millions of people on it. But there isn't a lot of communication in a certain way. I mean, it's in forums and stuff, but say if I went to Dan Simmons' book page, and I'm a big Dan Simmons fan, he's not on it. His books are on it. People have put those books on. They've written about them. They've reviewed them. But if I want to send, Dan Simmons a message and say, hey, Dan's not there, and you'll find that for a majority of the authors on Goodreads, they're not that active on it. They know it's there. Obviously, they understand its importance. You want your book reviewed. But it's not really the platform to do that. And I also wanted something more social than just the forums. I loved the interaction of a more social context like Facebook has. And I thought, well, can we bring that communication methodology, and interweave it with books and book reviews and so on and so forth. But the other part of that was authors have real needs in promoting their books and in finding their audience. And some of them may not want to be that part of the social aspect of it outside of something they're already established with, say, Facebook. But they need a website. A lot of people don't have websites that work for them. They work for their website. So I thought, well, since it's all part of communication, it's all about that outreach between authors and readers, then I thought, well, let's see if we can put that all into one system and see what came out of it.
So what were some of the first reactions that you got from users that started using Third Scribe?
Authors, I think, didn't really understand what it was. A lot of the early authors, they would run in, they would sign up, they would put their books in, and then they would leave.
Right.
Because they thought, oh, well, it's just another thing to put books on, like 50 million other things. I'll list my book here and take off. And some did, and some stuck around more than others. The idea of blending in a website into all your other stuff, I think, is still kind of alien.
Right.
But once you start using it, as I think that you have, you realize that it's really pretty nice.
Yeah.
It works pretty well. On the reader side, one of the first, the early questions we had from the advanced readers were, how come I can't enter in books? How come I can't enter in my books? And my response to them was, look, if you just want to enter in books, and there's a million, there's at least, we wrote a blog post early on, 11 alternatives to Goodreads.
Right.
So you've got Goodreads and at least 10 others, not counting us, where you can do that. Library thing, Goodreads, book likes, all these things kind of facilitate that. And I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. What I wanted was a communication platform, not a book listing platform. So that kind of threw some people off. But then, they started realizing, well, if I actually send someone a message that they get it, that if an author's books are here, they're actually here, and they want to talk to me. They're interested in me. So that changed the dynamic a little bit.
What do you think, Rob, is changing about publishing and the way authors connect with readers, that we are now to the point to where we have a platform like Third Scribe that is actively connecting readers with writers? Now, 20 years ago, that concept would be foreign, that, if you go to the bookstore and you pick up a book, there's no expectation on the reader's part that they would ever get to communicate with the writer. There's always been this hierarchy that there are writers and there are readers, and they are in some sort of separated class, and the two shall never meet. But that idea is changing, isn't it?
Yes, it's changing quite a bit. The power of the internet, the information technology of it, the immediacy of it, is something that, everyone is finding startling. Even now, even today, the idea that I can go to, Barnes & Noble right now and pick up a book of any book, and I can say, that author's kind of cool. Let's see what they're up to. And I can do a web search on them with my phone. I can find their personal website, their Facebook page, everything within seconds. Their Twitter feed. And I can see them, And that may or may not influence whether I buy their book. If the book's good enough, I'll probably buy it without them. But the next book, what I found is that it's the second book that's highly influenced by social media. The first book is by, is the cover art good? Are the ratings there? Are all these things here? Do I like it? But there's so many choices. There's so many authors. There's so many things out there that people now have the ability to identify with the author as a person. From webcomics years ago, they would say, what you really want to do is get people coming to your site to read your webcomic, obviously, but those people now have a rapport with you, especially if you interact with blog comments and so on and so forth, so that when your book comes out, they'll buy it, even though they're getting it for free online, a day or a week or whenever at a time. When the book comes out, they'll still go buy it. And the question was, well, why is that happening if you got the book for free? Like, if it's online and you can look at it right now anytime you want for free, why did you go buy the book? Well, you went to buy the book, A, because you liked the comic and maybe you wanted a nicer version of it. But what they found over and over again, talking to fans at cons and so on and so forth, is that people bought the book because they liked the author.
Right.
They've talked with him, they've met him, they saw him somewhere, the guy wrote back to them online. You left a comment, said, man, that's a great post, thanks for writing that. And the author wrote back within 10 minutes and said, hey, thanks, man, appreciate your reading. That generates this great rapport, and as more and more authors are understanding the power of that, they have realized that, I need to talk to my fans. Right. Because that personal relationship transcends certain things, and you want to back someone that you know and that you like. So brands have found that out, companies find that out, corporations find that, everybody figures that out. That if you have a good online presence that people associate with, if you can somehow get down to that individual retail level, then people become ambassadors for you. They talk about you. And that's all good. And I think for indie authors especially, because you have no marketing budget, it's not like very few indie authors I think can afford to negotiate with Barnes & Noble for placement of their books, if they could even get their books in it. Right. They can't buy billboard space. They have to be online. They have to be, guerrilla marketing. which is talking to people.
And people want to feel like they're a part of something.
They do. They really do.
Yeah. There's, there are book series, that seem to, the experience of it grows bigger than the book itself. Like take Harry Potter, for instance. That's an entire cultural phenomenon that people associate themselves with the characters in the book and with the whole world of the book. And if people can feel like they're plugged in and a part of something, the power of the book grows exponentially.
Yes, very much so. They want to share in the success. They want to share partly in its creation. One of the things that Catherine Rush wrote about in her one of her business series on her blog about authors and websites, one of the most looked at part is, when's the next book coming? People want to know. They check it. They're like, ooh, you wrote another 5,000, 1,500 words today. Yeah. I know authors that's what they post on Facebook. Hey, I knocked out another, 1,000 words today. I finished off the 3rd chapter or whatever. People like to hear it. They want to be involved.
So you mentioned Goodreads and authors that post there or don't post there for the most part. I've also noticed that what will happen a lot of times with all of these different social network platforms is people just cross-post links to things there. So you'll get an author that's on Goodreads, but they only post a link to their blog post or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get people to be engaged in the community instead of just posting drive-by links?
That's a really tough question, and I don't know if I know the full answer to that. I will say that for the other day, one of the authors, it was probably 2 weeks now, I guess. One of the authors on the site made it a point in his book, and I got one of his books, that he was interested in racial diversity in fantasy novels, and he wanted to write he was writing a fantasy series, and one of the things he said is, I want to be involved with, I don't want it to be, a whole bunch of white people. It's a rich world. There's lots of things out there different, and I want to celebrate that. I want to make sure that's involved. And he was an African American writer, and he grew up on fantasy writing, and he said he always felt bummed that there wasn't anyone like him in so many of the books that he read. So I read that in the forward to his book, and I jumped onto his book page in Third Scribe, and I started a topic in his forum about people of color, and racial diversity in fantasy. And I said, how obviously this is a factor you. How did you do it? In what is so much a European medieval setting as so many of them are. How did you blend it in, and what did you do? And he responded, and there was other authors and members chimed in and talked about their experiences with it. And it wasn't a giant conversation. It didn't go on for 20,000 words, but everyone participated had a few back and forths, and hey, the topic was talked about. I thought it was. I think that authors react to a question that they're asked. They're busy. They're generally running a full-time day job, and then they're writing in their off time at night or in the morning or lunch breaks or whenever they can fit it in. Very few do it full-time. And so it's hard for them to engage in different communities. But if someone asks them something, they generally react to that. They say, wow, someone actually took the time to ask me an actual pointed question about my book. I want to answer it. And they do.
What does Third Scribe, what tools are there to allow the readers and the writers to connect on a more intimate level?
Well, there's a lot. The primary tool is websites for authors. An author can sign up and get started with a pretty nice website, actually a very nice website, for free, basically. There's a free tier that you can start at, and there's a lot of capability in that. And I found that for a lot of authors, just putting out a blog post that someone can see and responding to comments is enough. That might be as much as they want to go. And for readers, if you wanted to follow a blog post, there's an index to do that, and you can follow any author that you want, however you like, just as you would any other website. There's also forums. There's a general forum that's kind of a catch-all, and we have things for the different genres and just general discussions and, book versus movie, all that type of thing. There's every book page has its own forum as well. So if you had a book or a book series out and you wanted to capture that discussion, you don't have to hunt around 50 million, forum posts across a general discussion site wide. You just go to the book's forum, and you can see it right there. I mean, that's what's happening. Start something new or participate in something that's ongoing. And then there is the social network. There's a social stream that connects everything together, and it works very much like Facebook does. In that you have a way to enter in stuff. You can post links, pictures, videos, whatever you'd like to do, but this also connects to everything. So it's kind of the catch-all. If you want to know everything that's going on with Third Scribe, regardless of it, whether it's a forum or a blog post or a social update, you could go to the activity stream, and it's all right there. And click on any item that you want to see more of.
So,
go
ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No, you go. Go ahead.
I was going to say that. So every aspect of the site, whether it be the author's website or the author's books, everything has a social interactive element to it.
Yes. So, for example, if you're on an author's website and you see their books, and we use a system that we developed called Enter Once that actually pulls the information from the social network to help build an author's website. So all their sales links are there, and everything's formatted, and it looks nice, and they don't have to do anything. It's a drop-down menu. So if you go to an author's website that uses Third Scribe, and you click on yours, for example, and I see the book card for Bloom, and I click on the cover or the title or anything about that book card except for the buy links, I guess, I'm going to go to that book's dedicated page in Third Scribe, and everything is there. I could look at all the reviews. We pull reviews from Amazon and Goodreads as well as in-house reviews, so you can see all that. You can see everywhere where it's sold. But you can also see the forums are right there. You can click to it. The activity stream is right there. There's an event calendar. So if you were doing signings, you could put that down, and you could list that as an event, and that actually can also be shown as a widget on your website, so you don't have to maintain things differently. You just, hey, there it is. You can put your whole schedule down. So everything is kind of there, connected, and we just felt that was a novel way to do it.
Absolutely. What do you think? We're in this new age of interconnectedness, where the content creators and the content consumers are engaging. Do you think that is going to affect the kind of art that's coming out?
Yes. I think it's going to affect it a lot.
In any specific way?
I just see a lot of the interaction. There's kind of two ways you can do it. There's some authors that say, hey, I'm writing my book. I write what I write, and you guys can read it. You can like it or not like it. There are others that want the audience more involved. And that could go anything from, naming a character to, hey, help me decide on the ending. The applications there are endless, and I think it depends on what people want to do and how they want to interact with their audience. There was an interesting thing many years ago with Batman about the death of Robin. And there was the Robin there, Jason Todd, and nobody liked Jason Todd. Poor Jason. And so they decided they were just going to kill him off. But they didn't want to just say, we're just going to kill Robin. They said, well, let's see if people actually aren't happy with Robin. So DC had a number and a 900 number, whatever, and you could vote. And people did, and evidently they didn't. No one. There was a bloodthirsty lot in comic books, and they said just get rid of Jason Todd, and so he's gone. And I think that was one of the beginnings of real audience participation in a storyline. Normally that would never have happened. Why would you do that? The company or the authors or the writers or the script team or whatever would just sit there and say, editorial would say, you know something, let's just make room for someone new in Batman. Let's shake it up and we'll kill off Jason. And it wouldn't go up to the audience, but they decided to do that. Now with reality TV, you see that all the time.
Right.
You know, who's vote for your favorite, singer on The Voice. Or whatever the reality show of the moment is. There is an audience participation. And those shows have tremendous viewership because of that, because people feel involved in the outcome. And I think that it's just a matter of time before, and I don't think many authors will do this. I think a lot of people are very proprietary about the story they tell. But I do think that there's going to be some things in the future where they do want audience participation, where they are going to open up elements of characterization or story or something. I mean, even now with Kickstarters, it's we'll include your name as a person in the book. You'll be a major character will be named after you if you pledge $100 or more or whatever. There's these things they start to happen. They start to drift.
Which goes back to what we said earlier about people wanting to be involved in something.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So, what do you think about blogging for authors? How often should an author be blogging, and what sort of things do you think they should be sharing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I talk about this, and I should probably put together something a little more formal on my own blog, I guess, but. Again, very busy. What I would recommend is that you blog maybe once a week. And if it's not once a week, that's okay. If it's more than that, great. If it's less than that, that's okay too. But don't just ignore the thing. Don't let a week go to 2 weeks, to go to a month, go to a year. I've seen people that have their blog is sat there for a year.
Right.
If your blog sits there for a year, then it's not doing anything for you. It's a waste, because the date will be shown. People will show up to your site and say, gosh, this guy hasn't written anything here for a year. I guess they're not here, and then it's not working for you. In terms of what you should blog about, I think that's really dependent on your audience. I've been giving this a lot of thought, and I'm actually working on a kind of a short book on blogging and how it can help authors and how to use it. I see many authors write things that their blog post is, look, I have a new cover, or look, I have a book, my book's coming out next week. And I'm not saying you shouldn't include that in your blog. You should, absolutely. But that shouldn't really be kind of the driving content, People find you by search. They're either came across you because someone recommended you, or they saw you on Amazon and they do a search for you, or they're searching for something else. And so the key here is to try and cover your bases. For authors, I think there's really two audiences. You have the community that you're a part of. So if you're a science fiction author, you're kind of talking, you are an author. And so you're talking about the business of authorship and the trials and tribulations of being an author, and little tips and tricks you picked out, and things that you communicate with other authors. That's your tribe, your author tribe. But there's also your readers. If you're a science fiction writer that writes about, space stations, you should be writing, there should be some blog posts out there about space,
Right.
About interplanetary stuff, how you got started, why you're fascinated with it, why did you write about it, what's going on with the International Space Station? What are the top 10 space stations of, television? There's little things about that you would write that people search. I wrote a post a while back about how to help 5 ways your blog's not working for you, I think. And one was that if it didn't have any pictures, it's probably not working for you.
Right.
You might not be a big fan of sharing pictures or pinning pictures, Pinterest, but other people are. And so if you have some interesting graphics that are pinnable, then that's probably not a bad thing to have. If you're not writing for your readers, then you're probably making a mistake. You want to talk about the things that they're talking about, and you want to be engaged in the things that they're engaged in. So I think one of the examples I used was if you're a steampunk author, there are a lot of things about steampunk that you could probably write about that would show up in people's search. For example, top 5 steampunk costumes for kids. You could write a review of the Edison in Los Angeles if you ever had the chance to go, which is a really cool kind of steampunk industrial bar. That's really cool. You could write about, different things involved with steampunk. If you were at a maker's fair, if you were selling cool things online, if you got a new keyboard that's shaped like an old style, typewriter with all the brass and wood and cool stuff that's very steampunky. All those things are things to do and talk about because people might be searching for them. And that would bring them to your site, and if you had your books at the bottom, people would say, oh, look, they made this cool post of content that I'm interested in, and oh, wow, this guy writes steampunk novels too. Maybe I should click through and take a look at them. And that's kind of how blogging works. You want to put content out that people are engaged in, that they're interested in, hopefully that they'd be willing to share, but has an interest with what you want to sell, basically, and then authors want to promote their books. So you would want to be writing some for that community. In writing for authors, you're getting other people onto your cause. Maybe you're learning something by interacting with them, but you're also kind of growing your reach a little bit with them. And I think that's why you see a lot of author groups kind of collaborating. I'm seeing a lot more of that lately.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the author roundtable that I recorded with 5 other authors a couple of weeks ago, that was one of the topics we talked about, was this new collaborative type atmosphere that's happening with authors. That's interesting that you brought that up.
I think it's really positive. I don't know who started it or how it really started, but I certainly noticed it with Hugh Howey, that he writes a lot about authors and supports authors. But you'll find that, and they've become very much a part of the Hugh Howey tribe. There's definitely a tribe around him of independent authors, because he's such a champion for them, and rightfully so. He's obviously been phenomenally successful. And so they're more than willing to talk about his books as well. And he pays it back if someone comes back to him and he helps get their word out too. It's very community driven. I think that it has to be.
Rob, earlier you talked about the webcomics world and how people would get this content for free but then still go out and buy the book. Is there anything from that model or that community that we as fiction writers could learn from?
Yeah, I think. There's kind of the extreme example where you just put your book up online for free and hope that people like it so much that they'll want a more convenient copy. And there are authors that do that, and some are very successful at it. I think part of what they write in their kind of their genre applies to that. There are others that what I think is best is that people should put a lot of short stories up for free. what authors are really, or what readers are really interested in is stuff to read.
Right.
And one of the things that I've seen out there, and we've been very successful with that, I think, with our stories platform that's a part of Third Scribe, but is that they want to, in a world where there's infinite choice, which basically, let's face it, Amazon and Barnes & Noble and the major retailers have basically provided us with infinite choice. And most of the books aren't that expensive. You're not breaking the bank to get a Kindle copy of pretty much anything. Even at $9.99, that's a heck of a lot cheaper than, the $26 you used to have to fork out for a hardcover.
Sure.
And a lot of books now are much less, especially at the indie level. You're really bouncing between, 99 cents and $4.99. And, so when you've got a couple million books at that level, you got a lot of choice. But what people want is they don't want to waste their time. They want to know that something is worth their time, because now money and scarcity aren't really the factor. So I think that sharing short stories for free and putting them out there, and saying, hey, this is a sample of my writing. This is a nice story. Say it was 10,000 words. Well, yeah, 10,000 words is probably a lot, but if it helps you move or gets a lot more attention to your 60,000 word novel or your series of novels, then that's probably a pretty good thing to do. I think that if I were to give away if I were an author today, I would be looking a lot at free stories, not major ones, but not all the time, but a couple good, solid ones that really give a feeling for their writing, perhaps a nice intro to a book that they're working on or something, a deleted scene type of thing, I guess, something that maybe they didn't want to put into their novel but felt it was really good and important anyway. And either they put that up for free on Kindle, or all the retailers really, or up on their website, which I think is better, or a platform like ours, like Stories, that can link to other books, can link to more of their content, and that's a good thing to do. It's nice, it's shareable, it's online, people can look at it, and if you do it right and have, prompts to direct towards your blog or to your paying work or to your newsletter or something that helps you stay in contact with authors or with the readers, then I think that's a great plan.
Yeah. This is something that I thought about as you were talking. A lot of authors are giving away stuff for free, kind of, if you use KDP Select and are using Kindle Unlimited and those types of systems where you can acquire somebody's book for free if you have this subscription. But I don't think people quite look at that the same way as if an author puts on his or her blog, hey, I have this story for free, come and get it. What do you think might be the perceived differences in those type situations?
I don't know. I think the subscription model is always an interesting one. And I think it's probably growing. I know there was some data on the author earnings report about it, and I thought that was positive. It looks like authors are making money with it, so I think that's positive. The only thing that I don't like about it, and I like a lot of things about it, don't get me wrong. But the only thing I would say is that if something is online, it's more accessible and more shareable. It's hard to share a Kindle book. You can click to someone that says, hey, I bought this, but then they have to click it, and then they have to decide to buy it, and then they have to buy it and do it. There's a lot of clicks there. If you share something online for free, then it's less friction, I guess. So I think the word gets out a little differently, depending on how your readers interact with each other, I guess. But for the systems, especially Kindle Select and Kindle Unlimited, I think that they're very positive. I think it's going towards a subscription model for books is a real. I think it's a. I don't know if I want to say it's a complete game changer, but it's definitely a change. I think one of the things that they'll have to be very careful with is, will the subscription price meet the book reading price? Because
right.
Amazon still pays if someone borrows your book or checks it out from Kindle Unlimited, you're gonna get something from that. And so they have to kind of figure out how their financials are going to work. And that a couple people have tried it. There's a service called Oyster that's been out for a while. I don't know how well they're doing, but I think they're one that now that Kindle Unlimited is there, I don't know what their chances are. It's that's a tremendous advantage they'd have to overcome with Amazon. But they
Amazon's
did kind of
the 800-pound gorilla in all of the publishing space.
They are, but I think anyone that has a dedicated reader has an advantage over anyone that doesn't. So Kindle obviously is the most widespread. They got in very early with the market. They had a product that wasn't great, but it was good. And you could get any kind of book you wanted on it. Previous e-readers were very like, oh, you have to find your special e-reader and download it off the web and do 50 steps. So the Kindle really jumped on that market. They took the pain out of it, and they ended it serious. And so they got a humongous amount of market share while everyone tried to catch up. I'm a Nook fan, actually, so I prefer Nook to Kindle. But, hey, I don't get to have Kindle Unlimited unless I buy a Kindle. But there you still have Nook and Kindle. See, I have a choice. I have a Nook and I can buy a Kindle. I can do either one. I can have both. I mean, why not? I used to have 1,000 books in my library, so it's not like, you can't buy two things.
True.
But if you wanted to take advantage of, something like Oyster, for example, well, you don't have a dedicated reader for that, but you can probably do it off your smartphone, or your tablet. But I don't like reading for prolonged periods on my phone or tablet. That the light hurts my eyes. If I'm going to read, I like to do it with a reader because it doesn't give me a headache. And once you've kind of there's sort of a device thing that once you've kind of got into your device, you tend to really stick to it. You don't buy a lot from other places. You kind of stay with your structure. So that's I think that'll be tough for outside services, but I do think that Nook kind of missed the ball. I think they could have made a run for that ahead of Amazon if they'd had the chance. But Amazon went to it anyway, so I think that they have a huge advantage again. I think that it's going to catch on in the same way that Netflix does. In that before Netflix kind of started and you couldn't get a whole lot from it, and people were like, well, why am I streaming this? I could just buy it. I don't buy movies anymore. I just wait the 3 months for Netflix because I got pretty tired of buying a DVD for $20 and then 2-3 months later it showed up on Netflix and I was like, well, damn it. Why did I waste obviously I have wasted my money.
Right.
And I wonder if, say, 2-3 years from now, Kindle Unlimited will be the same thing. Why buy a book? If I read more than one book a month, and a lot of readers read a lot more than one book a month, why am I buying them?
True.
I can just wait and get a subscription if I read that many. But the subscription element's weird. I mean, Spotify, a lot of the places they're making some money, but are they making enough money?
Right.
And are they making enough money to keep their own doors open and to pay a reasonable, fee to the authors? And I think that will get interesting when you get to, say 100 million users.
Right.
And
authors need to be paying attention to these new technologies and things because, like you said, authors need to be connecting with readers. That's the whole reason that you built Third Scribe, is to connect the two ends together. And authors need to be giving good content to their readers. And so no matter what platform, whether it's Kindle this week or Nook, or if some new player comes out, authors need to be aware of those things and utilizing those technologies the best they can.
Yes, and content is key. I mean, you can be as social savvy as you want, but if you're not putting out a good book or a good story or a good something, you know, people might hang around to listen to you because you're cool, but they're not going to buy your book anymore. Right. You know, and that's defeating your purpose. You know, content is always going to be king.
Yeah.
But, you know, you touched on something with authors have to be aware, not just of their audience, but the business of being an author is becoming very, very interesting. In that you really are very much your own business. For many people, it's not a hobby. You know, it's full-time work. And you have to start looking at it as a business. You know, what makes good business sense for you? Someone asked the other day if they should be on Nook. You know, well, should I be on Nook at all? And I said, well, what kind of author, what do you write? And they're like, well, I write science fiction. Well, you know, then it wouldn't hurt you to be on Nook, but if you really had to make a decision, you might be better off with Kindle. Because if you go to the Nook Top 100, I don't think you're going to see a single science fiction book on there. But if you're a romance author, you better be on Nook.
That's right.
Because 70% of the top 100 is romance. So obviously there's an audience there that's involved, you know, and I don't know how these ecosystems develop. I don't know how people gravitate a certain way, but obviously, you know, demographics move, and if you pay attention to that, then you start to learn things. You know, what's the better deal for you financially? What's the better pricing for you to be? You know, I think the recent Amazon Hachette thing, you know, all about money. And but I thought that Author Earnings had a very interesting point in one of their reports during the Amazon Hachette dispute. They said, well, you know, actually the optimum pricing was like $3.49 or something. I don't remember the exact number, but it wasn't $4.99. It wasn't $2.99. They said, you know, the best pricing possible is, you know, $3.40. But people need to kind of pay attention to their business and see where the best market is, what the best pricing is, what things work for them and don't work for them. You know, they need to use kind of analytics and looking at their financials. It's more difficult. Well, I don't know if it's probably easier than it's ever been. But I guess as people start to get into it and recognize that, you know, being an author, being an independent author, there's a lot of things you need to pay attention to be good. And it's not just the writing. You know, the writing is obviously immensely important. But, you know, if you want to make money at it, then you need to understand where your money's coming from, where your effort is going. And, you know, that's an interesting challenge these days.
True. What would you tell a new author, Rob, who comes to you for advice and help with, say they're a new author, they have no audience, but they have this piece of work that they've created, and they want to get it out to the world, and they want to continue creating more art and more books, and they came to you and said, Rob, I need help getting started. Where do I start? What would you tell them?
You know, an author actually, about 2 months ago, actually did come to me and ask that question, and I don't know if you like my answer.
Okay.
But I'll repeat it because I think it's even more valid now than it was 2 months ago. The biggest problem that any new author has is getting noticed. You know, whether you're an independent or you're with a publisher, it really doesn't matter. Unless you're a top level author with a publisher, the publisher isn't going to do a whole lot for you. You know, they have their own bean counters and numbers to crunch, and so they'll put a lot more effort in things that are going to get them more sales. So if you're a new author, regardless of your circumstance, you got a lot of legwork to do, and that's just life. One, I definitely would have a website and a blog, and I would blog regularly, at least once a week, with content that's actually, you know, think would be engaging and people might look for and search for. And I think that you need to base that if someone does find you, on the web and look for you, that they want to actually know something about you and connect to you and be drawn in and interested to your story, and to you personally, not just your books. So I think that's important. Your book better be the best book that you can possibly produce, with a really good cover and well edited, because content is key. And I've seen a number of authors say, well, I'll get a good editor when I sell more copies. And to me, I tell them, you're not going to sell any copies unless you have a good editor. Right. Same thing with cover art. Well, I'll invest in cover art when I sell more copies. If you don't have good cover art, you're not going to sell copies. It's a hyper-competitive environment. There's something, I think it's an outrageous number, like 16,000 books are uploaded to Amazon a day. Believe me, if you don't, the level of quality that an independent has to put out now is so far above what they had to do 2 years ago. If you're not on par with a publisher level book, you don't have a chance. You'll sell some copies to your moms, your friends, and then that's going to be it. So quality really is key. You've got to have your eye on quality. And even if you're being published, you should still be involved with the production of that book. I had an author who was with a publisher, and he's very successful, but he definitely had a disagreement with them about marketing the book and the cover art and stuff, and he had to fight. He says, they won't sell if you do that. I know my audience. So you do have to be involved, and quality is definitely a key thing. The other half is that you need to be looking at some outreach. Before you've even sold a copy, you should be trying to get email newsletters. You should be trying to get contact information from readers or potential readers. So an e-newsletter and the sign up for that, something you can gather email, is important. It's important all the time. So I don't know if it ever grows in importance, but it's definitely, you have to start somewhere. You have to start with number one. So if you don't have that, you should start that. And those are kind of the base things that you can do for your quality. You've got a little bit of an online presence, so if someone finds you, you're not a blank page. You've got a quality book, you've got a quality cover, you paid attention to the blurb, and you're starting to gather email lists. That's all good. But for many, that's the basic. A lot of people are there now, and they still can't get more readers. And the other part of that, I guess the other half of the equation here is you're going to need some help getting out there. If you want to buy advertising space, you can, but most people don't have the money to do that for very long. And despite what anybody says, advertising does work. The only problem with advertising is that as soon as you stop advertising, it stops working. There's very little post. Even with BookBub, BookBub is very popular. BookBub's a great service. But if you don't have a good base of people already, I would not do BookBub. I would not do a BookBub if you were a brand new author. I think that's problematic. Because you need some reviews, you need some base level. So how do you get all this if you don't have anything? I think that's where I recommend finding an author to be a mentor. I really recommend mentorship. For a number of the big authors that Michael Bunker is one, he got really kind of a big kickstart in his genre from Hugh Howey. Hugh Howey was his mentor. He wrote a book in Hugh Howey's universe. It was well received. Hugh liked it. He promoted it. He saw that Michael Bunker was working on Pennsylvania. He read Pennsylvania. He thought Pennsylvania was cool, and he promoted that. And I know that those two have talked, regularly, kind of since that time, and that helps. I've seen some other authors and other groups of authors start to recognize this and kind of turn it into almost a cooperative service. You see Kindle Worlds. I think Kindle Worlds is going to grow, and I think if you have the chance to be involved with the Kindle World, that an author should do it. And even if they don't, they should, if they think they have an author out there that's bigger than them, that they really respect, it doesn't email her to say, hey, I would love to write some fan fiction on your world and put it up for Kindle. Would you be okay with that? Why not? It seems to be a win-win really for a lot of people. So I definitely recommend that. Because it kind of helps to have someone in your corner that can help get you out there, that has a bigger audience than you.
And I think a lot of authors would be receptive to that.
I think they would. Matter of fact, with Third Scribe, we're getting involved with a kind of a co-op thing from Wonderment, which is the Apocalypse Weird phenomenon. And that I think is kind of what I'm talking about, really quantified. And I think there's no, mistake in that the founders of that Apocalypse Weird are people who got their start by writing fan fiction for other people. Michael Bunker's one of them. And so I think they said, hey, why don't we create a framework where we can help other authors do this too? We can give back to the community and create something really kind of cool. I think that is a fascinating idea. I love the concept that universe building can be beneficial to people other than Marvel Comics and their movie studios. That you can create a world that other people can go into, and that it's an IP framework designed really from the get-go to help bring up new authors and cultivate them. So I think that's a fascinating idea. I think that if you are a new author and you write or at all interested in post-apocalyptic fiction, you should be checking that out, especially if you already have a book out, because a platform like that can help grow your audience. My recommendation to the gentleman who asked me a couple months ago was that very same thing. I knew of a couple authors that were having kind of a collaboration program, sort of a, hey, write a story about one of my characters and I'll help promote you. And I recommend that he do it. I don't think he did, but I think that having someone larger in your corner who's very interested in helping promote things is good. I remember there was, who was that guy, Frey? The author who wrote A Million Little Pieces and then got involved with the I Am Number 4 type of thing. I don't remember the name of his company. I think it's still ongoing. He had an interesting idea. He had the same idea, obviously a few years ahead. I think a lot of people weren't happy with his business practice, and with the structure he had kind of set up. But the idea there is the same. Can we create something that is other people can use, and not only for the benefit of the company that created the world that they're using it, but for the benefit of the users itself? I think Frey's problem was he didn't want the authors to get any credit. He just wanted a story out and said, hey, well, we'll pay you, but no one can ever know that you were here. And that was a problem. What I saw with Wonderment is they're saying, hey, not only do we want you to be involved in this, but we really want to help promote you as someone who is involved in this. And that, I think, is kind of the critical difference. And I really hope it works out. I'm fascinated by the concept, and I think that it will help get a lot of authors who are probably having trouble getting noticed, getting more noticed.
Well, Rob, we are running up on an hour here. It's been a fascinating chat, but tell us what's next for Third Scribe, and what are your plans for the future?
Well, Third Scribe next is to solidify the platform and obviously get a lot more authors participating. We're starting to really push for growth. We have gotten a lot of the kinks out. We've gotten our workflow figured out. We've learned a lot working with authors for the last 6 months and what they need, especially in the support arena. And so we've kind of smoothed a lot of that out, and so we're looking to grow that platform. We're also looking at bringing in some different services. We're always looking at new things. One of the things that we want to do is provide a bit of a one-stop shop for ThirdScribe, in that not only can you get a lot of your social media and online presence there, but we would like to help promote you and help you as an author. So we're looking at, we obviously have the stories platform, which we're, add stories to, which is really nice. But we're looking at a bit of a kind of a classroom type of thing where we can offer classes on, for example, how to use your blog to increase your followers, or what you should be doing with a newsletter, or, how you can, the business into books, maybe how to launch a Kickstarter. A lot of people have found success paying for their production costs of the books with Kickstarter, but Kickstarter can be kind of daunting. We're looking at putting together a class on how to do that, and it would all be available online. So we're looking at different platforms like that we can tie into this system to really provide a good place for authors and publishers and everyone to be at. I'm starting to kick around, with my partners, the idea being the anti-author solutions, and that we want it to be really effective, really useful, and very affordable, and provide a lot of services that people actually need. And I think that ultimately that's where we're headed.
It's good stuff. Rob, thanks for taking time out to come on the show this week. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for taking your time and for the interview.
Yeah. And thirdscribe.com is where they can find the website, and you have a blog there too, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, where can people find your blog?
I'm at robmcclellan.thirdscribe.com.
Awesome. And we'll send everybody to see you. And we'll send everybody to go sign up for an account at ThirdScribe. Whether they're an author or a reader, there's a place for them at ThirdScribe, isn't there?
There most certainly is. We welcome all comers.